We're live. All right, welcome are we?
Yeah, I
Looks
think
like
so. It says
yeah,
so.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. There we go. I think it's my connections. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to a very special Love Remembers. Just when you think things are not happening, as you know, we have breaking news, and we're going to bring it to you right away. I'm actually, as you can see, I'm right now at my son's football practice, but I found a quiet little corner here because I have two incredible investigative journalists. One that you guys know, hometown name Zev Shalev. Has been breaking all the Epstein stuff, and is just does some of the incredible investigative reporting. And today I want to introduce you to somebody special. So another incredible investigative reporter. He's also a producer. He's on Substack, so show him some love. It's his first time here live with us, Patrick Lavelle. And Patrick has been doing a lot of investigative work that ties into banking, financial crimes, a lot of the things that are going to be now that we are seeing that's tied into the Epstein stuff that Zev has been talking about. And now today, what we're breaking is what Patrick and Zev have been talking about. And I'm going to hand it off to them in 1 second. Is that we've been watching the weaponization of the DOJ going after Lisa Cook, going after Adam Schiff, and others. And one of the tools that they are using is the mortgage fraud. It's a tool that they're trying to do, and it's not just them; it's others that the DOJ is trying to go after. Also tied into this is a name that was thrown out yesterday by Congressman Massey. Congressman Massey came out and said that one of the names that's being protected by Donald Trump and is Paulson,
John
John
Paulson.
Paulson. John Paulson. John Paulson is a Republican donor. He's a Donald Trump donor. But very interestingly, he's also a very, very big Johnson, the leader of the House,
Mike
Speaker of the
Johnson.
House, Mike Johnson, the Speaker, his donor also. So this is some breaking news. I'm going to let the guys, I'm going to hand it over to you, Zev. You take charge, and Patrick, and give us the rundown. How does it connect the dots to us?
All right, we will do that. Lev, just be careful that no ball hits you. I'm worried about any stray ball. How's your son practice? Is he still
Oh,
go well out there?
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
you're
give you a
good.
quick look. There you go.
It's so
I'm
nice.
standing. Yeah, I went in the corner.
You're a good dad. You come out for the practices as well as the games. That's great.
Listen,
Uh,
that's what Substack's all about, guys. And by the way, thanks to each and all of you subscribers that, you see what we do. We're here 24/7 bringing you Zev, Patrick, myself, wherever it is, whenever the news breaks, we're here giving it to you, making sure you know, because we're trying to save our democracy. And it's because of you, the subscribers, the paid subscribers. So make sure you go out there and subscribe to Zev, subscribe to Patrick, and make sure you do what you need to do. You know what we do here at Love Remembers. We spread the message far and wide. All right, go ahead, Zev. Give
Thanks
it
so
to
much,
us.
Lev. And everyone should, of course, support Lev. Everyone does already because you're the man. You do it all for us. Here's the breaking news tonight, and we'll get to Patrick in just 1 second. There's, we've discovered a narrative is a multi-million-dollar campaign is really underway to suppress the Jeffrey Epstein files from being released. And there are a few people that are really interesting supporting this. Now, of course, we know inside the administration, we've got Donald Trump, you've got Besant, you've got other people, Pam Bondi, all of them trying to suppress the release of these documents. And that is causing, some Republicans concern in the House and in the Congress. Many of them are currently, at least 8 of them have said it's a cover-up, but many of them are considering voting for this discharge petition, which will allow these FBI files to maybe come out, because there'll still be a vote that has to happen, but it'll maybe come out. But what we've discovered is that some of Donald Trump's biggest financial backers, John Paulson, Paul Singer, Miriam Adelson, are in an effort right now to unseat Tom Massey, the key Republican who's running the effort towards
Oh,
releasing the FBI files. So it's a very big deal. They're pouring millions of dollars into his Kentucky race against him. They don't want to see him. So that's why on Tuesday, when he was appearing in that press conference with the victims, with the survivors of Epstein, he was the one who was out there saying, I'll give you one name. And that one name he gave was John Paulson. Why did he give that name? Because John Paulson was in the Epstein Black Book. He was one of the names listed in the Epstein Black Book. So you've got a direct connection from the Epstein scandal itself to the cover-up that's happening right now and that Donald Trump's backers are backing. And I know, Patrick, you've done so much great work on understanding John Paulson and some of these other people because you've done a lot of investigation into the 2008 housing crisis and the scandal, the economic crisis that followed all of that. Can you tell us what you know about John and Paulson and about how this might all interconnect?
Absolutely, Zeb. And I want to say off the top, what a great honor it is to connect with both of you. I am so grateful for your efforts and your comradeship together to get the truths out in real time the way you guys do. It's incredible what you've been able to achieve. And of course,
Thank you.
Lev, thank you for introducing me to Zeb. And so to answer your question, guys, we're sending, as Lev had introduced, that Lisa Cook's trending, of course, on Blue Sky, among other social media devices. And why? Mortgage fraud, right?
Yep.
She supposedly, according to Trump, and of course, weaponizing the Department of Justice in a continuation of this guy Pulte from the Federal Housing Financial Commission to be to bring in at least an investigation. We have actually no idea where it's going to go, but predicated on mortgage fraud. Now, the most ridiculous aspect of this is Donald Trump is probably one of the biggest kingpins of mortgage fraud in the history of the
Right.
world.
Yes. He knows
Now,
how to play the game.
yeah, and he's been doing it for decades, my friends. And he's been doing it decades where it intersects with both of your work, right? So, first and foremost, as it relates to Lev, Putin had been laundering with Russia and assets and the oligarchs through Deutsche Bank hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars into the United States, particularly into Trump real estate, going back decades. That's one
Absolutely.
aspect of this. The other aspect of it is Epstein. Okay, well, we saw yesterday Thomas Massey and, of course, Ro Khanna, and lest we forget Marjorie Taylor Greene on the Capitol steps as the flyover took place to try to drown it out. And I know both of you guys are aware of that. But the idea was the transparency legislation, or I should say the Epstein files, right? The transparency initiative. And obviously, there's got to be things, as you both have addressed, that many powerful people can't allow to come to the fore, to the public. And one of those scenarios, as it intersects with literally everything from mortgage fraud to the Federal Reserve, to the Federal Reserve governorship, but most importantly in this particular situation, John Paulson. And I was blown away by your article today, Zeb, that connected John Paulson with Paul Singer as well with Singer as well as Adelson. Those are three of the biggest money backers of a Trump and a whole garden variety of what they're involved with. But to answer the question succinctly, John Paulson was involved with the greatest short in the history of the world. That short was monumentally larger than the film The Big Short. To put it into context, Michael Burry, who was the subject of The Big Short, he made out with his hedge fund approximately $500 million, $500 million. By contrast, John Paulson and his lieutenant, a gentleman by the name of Paolo Pellegrini, backed up the Brinks truck and made out with the real Big Short $20 billion
Wow.
when
It's a
the
good amount of money.
entire world collapsed.
Mm.
However, that's just the beginning. As a result of what we're seeing in this connection between, again, mortgage fraud indictment, or shall we say, the lie, deny, switch the blame, and implicate tactics of Donald Trump because he's been involved with this the whole time, including, let's check off the marks, Putin, Deutsche Bank, as it relates to the Federal Reserve and Donald Trump's initiation to try to take over the Federal Reserve in a hostile takeover sort of way by taking out a
Hey,
Fed.
Hey Patrick, and I apologize to interrupt you just for a second because but just for the viewers, because some of the subscribers are saying they don't know what short means, the terminology. Just quickly, I'm going to give them a little up so this way they know so they can follow along. What Patrick is talking about is the stock market. Shorting is betting on that things are going to go down, that the prices are going down. So when we knew that he's talking about during the when we had the big, 2008, when we had the big housing market depression where we had a recession, almost a depression when we needed the bailout. Paulson, there was a movie made about that, The Big Short, which is certain people shorted, knew ahead of time that this was going to happen, knew that it was inflated, that it was over, and they basically went and said, we're going to go against it and say that it's going down instead of, buying for it to go up. And that's what's called shorting in the stock market. And that's what it is. So go ahead, Patrick. I just wanted to explain to you. So Paulson basically said, and you could say predicted, knew, whatever you want, however, and Patrick, you let us know, but he bet on that it was going to go down and made out with over $20 billion.
The idea was in The Big Short, the film, was that the guys who were involved, the researchers, the hedge funds, did their research and they realized all the stuff that was happening that was illegal or mistakes, and there was no regulation, and they knew that it was going to explode, and so they were able to position bets accordingly to make out like bandits. John Paulson was the ultimate big whale in this
Mm.
situation, but this is where it connects to what Zeb's incredibly prolific work is revealing. So what he's been doing recently is Epstein, in the greatest heist ever, is talking about this convergence. Obviously, we know it's a horrible scenario, the honey trap, these girls that were basically served on a platter, as as Waj likes to describe, to these very powerful men that we now are all realizing are above the law, and the government circled the wagons to protect them. That's what a lot of people are responding to. But in the background, what we understand was there was money involved, a whole lot of it. And in that intersection, John Paulson was the other side of what Zev has been revealing to us, that when you understand Epstein and the mechanics of Epstein, he was running uh, a fund called Liquid Fund that was a part of Bear Stearns. It was part of the whole global racket. And ultimately, what took place was international money from the likes of the Russians, from the likes of the Saudis, from the likes of everybody from around the world was being pumped through the Epstein fund, as well as many other Wall Street hedge funds and private, excuse me, I should say, uh, well, the whole litany of, hedge funds and private equity and so on and so
You know what?
forth.
You're covering so much here. I'm wondering if we should just take it a little slower at a time and just focus on the
Yeah.
first elements here, because the liquid fund stuff is really interesting, but it gets me. Even I've looked at it for so many years and I get boggled eyed every time I look at it. I'm sure you don't, but for me it's kind of complicated. But just to go back to this idea that these guys were making a fortune of the dropping of the market, of people becoming homeless, basically. And this is where your interest got into this. Is 2008? Was it during the 2008 crisis that you lost your family home?
I know I went through it as well.
Yeah.
Tens of millions of us did, actually.
And that's it's such an interesting contrast, because you've got tons of people losing their money to losing their homes, and then you've got these guys like John Paulson making a killing off it. But not only John Paulson, also Jeffrey Epstein was making a killing off it, and so was Donald Trump. And so what we're beginning to see is an interesting group of people who seem to be involved in manipulating the markets, in shorting the market, in making money off the market, in running rug pulls, whatever they are, in order to profit off those things. And it's part of the Epstein story that's just not getting a lot of focus. We're focusing a lot on the human trafficking part of it, which is really designed to cover things up. But the stuff that's really going on behind the scenes is billions and billions of dollars are being shorted, traded, and made money off.
that,
Absolutely.
that actually were guaranteed by the United States government to the tune of tens of trillions to the guys that destroyed the world, to your point. So when you set people up in honey traps, you're preying on women to serve them to men to blackmail them. That's kind of the zeitgeist of that scenario. But for what? For the tens of billions of dollars of capital flow that were running around the world into these markets that they were, to your point, shorting.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of methodologies that you can play the game if you have all the cards. If it's a rigged game, we all know it's a rigged game. We all know that there's corruption. Now we can see that it got so bad as they were protecting the elites, these people that were involved in the Epstein files, to basically do what? Rape children, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking
Pedophilia.
about.
That's
Yeah.
Lev, you've
one
been on
side.
the
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah.
The money's the other
you've
side.
been on the inside of these guys, of this inner circle of Donald Trump. I mean, you've seen how it all works. I mean, were you were you aware of any of these kinds of interactions? Were you aware that there people were pumping the market and shorting the market and doing all these things throughout those years? And is that a common knowledge, or was that something done at a higher level? Just in general, what is your view of this concept?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm well aware of, how the market works because of my own interaction with the market. Being in the 90s, but I worked, on the other side. I was the Stratton Oakmont, the bulletin board stocks, the mob on Wall Street, that type of stuff. I was on the other side of the market back in the 90s. When I was with Donald Trump and his circle, I was primarily pushed aside and focused on the getting dirt on the Bidens, and that took over my life 24/7 of basically dealing in like espionage, being like, a government agent or whatever you want to call me, going out there and working on behalf of the administration and the president. So I can't say that I saw or I personally was involved or heard or anything about that. I would love to have been and tell you about it.
Mm.
But I could tell you this much: you don't have to go far and watch what they're doing right now in the open. I mean, first of all, you
Yeah.
take a look who he's put in his secretary, from Bissett to what's his name? What's his name? Running around selling gold cards.
Um,
Uh,
um, uh, Lutnick, Lutnick,
Lutnick.
or yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah, yeah, Lutnick.
Ludnick,
These are all,
sorry.
yeah, these are all Wall Street guys. These are all the guys that control the markets, have the information, know, and just take a look at what he was doing, even when he was doing with the tariff game. I mean, coming out in the morning and saying today's a good day to buy stocks, and then coming out with an announcement. 2 hours later, market runs up thousands of points. Then the next day, it goes down thousands of points. People are losing. See, that's the one thing that I think it's important that you guys are talking about right now is that when there's so many sophisticated ways of making money in the stock market, and usually when the market goes down, the most of the people, because they lose money, they think everybody's losing money. They think that, oh, everybody, it's just a bad time. But what you guys are telling, and which is extremely important, and why I think this is an important story, is if you take a look at, yes, in 2008, for those of you that remember, it was a time where we were close to a depression. I mean, it was really bad. People were losing homes left and right.
Yeah, it was terrible.
The economy was terrible, and nobody, common sense wise, a normal person would think that somebody's actually making money.
Hmm.
But there were lots of people, especially like what you're talking about, like Paulson and others, that were making billions of dollars on other people's losses, and that's why I think it's important, to discuss this, because I think all of this is fed through, at the end of the day, and I write about and I talk about what feeds Donald Trump, Witkoff, Putin, and all of these, is money. I mean, it's all
Hmm.
power, money, and that's where it stops. Yes, the human element of it, with the sex trafficking, the rape and everything, that's just so disgusting, and that is just so something that should unite every human being. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. Shouldn't be a red, white, blue. It should be everybody should be, because we're all humans. We all have children. We all have parents. We all have mothers, sisters. But we all have gone through it. So to be able to sit there and justify anything to do with pedophilia, sex trafficking, all of that is just disgusting. You know
But
what
isn't
I'm
that
saying?
really the option that the GOP is getting set up with? I mean, they either support Donald Trump and then become complicit in the cover up of the Epstein files. Now the GOP members are becoming the part of the obstruction of justice if they support Donald Trump. If they support the release of the Epstein files, Donald Trump is threatening to destroy their careers anyhow. They're in a very difficult position. And you know how the GOP works. It's a very lately, at least the current iteration of MAGA GOP is a very heavy environment. So these representatives are in a very difficult position, and we're seeing it being played out now with this pack that's fighting to get Massey removed. I mean, this is clearly an attempt to play very dirty politics.
Well, 100%. And this is just the beginning. I mean,
Mhm.
they're just getting started. I mean, and they're gonna go after Massey, and they're gonna go after, Bacon. They're gonna go after everybody that's, I mean, and Marjorie Taylor Greene already. They're already going after
Mhm.
her. Laura Loomer is, I mean, full blown already, making it a mission to get rid of her. So 100% they're going to do it. But that's why we have to be, as a community, loud. That's why we have to be louder than their lies are truth. And that's why we have to pierce it. That's why we do what we do. And that's why we need, each and every one of you subscribers out there to continue spreading the message, continue subscribing. If you can become paid subscribers to help each and every, because we're all out here trying to do, get you this information to make sure to be able to save our democracy at the end of the day, because this is not some reality show. This is not some daytime TV show that we're just trying to give you content. We're actually out there. I mean, you got two really top of the line investigative journalists here with me, and then and I'm not a journalist. I'm an actual whistleblower that has been part of it. I mean, Zev used to investigate me, just so you
Did.
understand. That's that's how that's
I
how
got
we
files
met.
on you, Lev.
Exactly. I'm saying to you. So you have some great investigative journalists that are bringing you stuff that the media is not bringing you. We're talking about here, and that's why it's important to pass the message on, because some of the stuff we're seeing play out right now. Like with the Paulsons, with the money, with the Epsteins. I mean, even the fact just that earlier I broke, the story about how you have that DOJ, that Project Veritas,
Yeah, I
James
saw that
O'Keefe.
story.
Exactly. And, James O'Keefe used to bring me these, operatives on Pizzagate and on the Democrats. And to have him now bring, a DOJ operative, somebody in the DOJ out there, you hear him with his own voice talking about, confirming everything we're talking about, how this cover up is taking place, how Maxwell is, being switched over, for staying quiet, how, and the interesting part that he mentioned there is how Bongino is
Mhm.
causing trouble.
Right.
And what's it called? So, and the media is not talking about it all, Zev. You know what I'm
I know
saying? In
there was
fact,
some reporting this morning on Morning Joe. I saw that they picked up the story. So I was really surprised. They normally wouldn't touch a James O'Keefe story because it's he's a controversial guy for them. But they ran the story as well. So they obviously saw your reporting there, Lev, and caught on to that. And clearly, this is a very unusual thing for James O'Keefe to be targeting a Republican inside the DOJ, who's talking about how they're going to really cover up the Donald Trump's involvement in the Epstein files. I mean, that's a pretty big, and any Republican involvement in the Epstein files, that's a big scoop you had there. And it's if that is in fact what they're planning to do, we're in for a hell of a ride trying to get to the truth here. Patrick, I'm so interested in your background because I think there's such a contrast here between the poverty that 2008 cost. There's so many people ended up being homeless, so many people lost their homes, that foreclosure crisis, it affected so many people. So many of the viewers who might be watching now might have been affected. We can all remember, it's only
yeah.
20 years ago that we can all remember the chaos that caused over everybody. And then you've got these rich, ultra rich hedge fund guys who are, and I mean, Miriam Adelson must be worth multiple billions of dollars. Paul Singer's a billionaire.
I mean,
Uh,
I used
yeah,
to deal with Sheldon, her
yeah.
husband, back in 2016 during Trump's first campaign in Vegas, and I was part of pitching them to become. That's when they were still getting involved with Trump and started giving him more and more money and
Well, they funded
radicalizing
him
him
40
more.
billion.
They funded him big time.
So that's a big, so 40 million, I should say. So
40 million, yeah,
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
40 million.
So 40 billion is a lot of money
No,
for a
no,
campaign.
actually, they went up. They gave over 100 million,
Really?
Zeph,
Wow.
later on. Yes, the Edelsons gave over 120 million, I think they gave.
Yeah, this is a guy who decamped here and went to the Chinese islands to basically run casino over there. Um, you know,
Well,
uh,
well, that's why he changed. By the way, I know a lot of people don't know, but that's why he moved the embassy in Israel. And again, not that I'm not. I was for that. Moving the embassy, even though it was controversial. But the reason Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem was because of the Edelsons.
hmm,
That
really,
was yes,
as a favor for them, as a wish, a request to them. Yeah.
a major request.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I remember that. So Patrick, what's your sense of that? Then not of this notion of these really rich people, these billionaires now running campaigns to de-seat Republican Congress people, who are trying to expose the truth for a change. And yet the billionaires seem to be running the show. Tell us a little bit more about your perceptions there.
Well, in a short order, I mean, it's like every villain we've seen in any movie depiction over the course of our lives. I mean, this is the empire. These are the guys in complete control, and they use deception to do it. And it's global. And the guys you just rattled off are the most powerful players in the entire scenario. But to circle back to our point about Paulson and how it relates to all things with Lisa Cook and mortgage fraud, which is all
Yeah.
things Donald Trump, and quite frankly, the pipeline from Putin through Deutsche Bank, all of this runs through not just the Federal Reserve, but also the Supreme Court. And what we're talking about was the corollary is, think about this. Epstein, the entirety of the honey trap was to, of course, prey upon vulnerable people, exploit them for an outcome, right? There was a methodology for what they did. What we're talking about on the financial side, these guys, these billionaires that you're talking about, they use the same predatory tactics to destroy tens of millions of people on one side of the ledger, which were people that got involved with the liars' loans that were being pumped through the Epstein scenario and so on and so forth. But Paulson was at the top of the list, okay, in terms of how he played the game because of inside information that the Supreme Court would later not look at because the Supreme Court's not in the business of doing discovery and ledgering the law. The Department of Justice and the Supreme Court are corrupt to the gills right now, as is the Federal Reserve. So when you're talking about billionaires, they're all feeding from the same trough, and it's all built and predicated upon global predation.
You mentioned the Lisa Cook angle, and this is really interesting for both of you. You guys, I know we're running out of time here, but Lisa Cook being accused of mortgage fraud, Adam Schiff being accused of mortgage fraud. This is all by the guy who was the king of mortgage fraud. Donald Trump has made an entire career out of that. This is a real weaponization of a thing that no one would ever have imagined weaponized against them, and in many legitimate reasons to call a home your principal home and all those other things. But it's going to have an effect. It's going to work to some extent, even though, as someone pointed out, ProPublica reported, there are three cabinet members who themselves are using the same principal exemption. But that's just an aside. But what's your sense of this contrast between this mega fraudster Donald Trump now accusing these small time bureaucrats and politicians of the same thing?
I would think it is to borrow this sort of conceptually what I think of who I think Donald Trump is. I always thought he the person who came up with the Joker straight out of Gotham, but with Donald Trump's face.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have seen that for like the last 10 years. I think that encapsulates this brilliantly. Everything that Donald has been involved with for decades
Mhm.
has hijacked the greatest democracy in the history of the world
Yeah.
and turned it into a criminal syndicate. The Department of Justice is part of a RICO presidency, the FBI. I know it's dangerous saying this because what happens to people in Russia when they do this, for the past 20 years with Putin? They get disappeared, right? We're on that path, and that's what it is. That's exactly what this whole thing is. It's the Putinization, if you will, and the things that obviously Lev has been in the midst of for, I think, his entire life, right? And he's had a front row view, is now overrunning the United States.
Hmm. Lev,
Yeah,
what's your thoughts on that?
I think that's a pretty good segment to finish up on this one
Yeah.
because I know time is running out, and I can
Yeah.
tell you, yes. I mean, I spent most. I was born in the Soviet Union. I grew up in Little Odessa, which was, even though it was in the United States, but it was primarily the same social cultural environment as living back in the Soviet Union. And then, at an early age, I went back there, and since 89, 90, I kind of saw how Russia, how evolved actually with the oligarchy, with how, some of these guys, I saw them go out of straight from prison into becoming billionaires. Some of these guys were, just factory managers that happened to become, billionaires. And it all went through, the Kremlin. And I saw Putin's rise. I saw him coming from, a KGB agent, literally, to becoming the mayor of Petersburg. To when they pushed him, and watching all of that play out and being there and seeing that. And at the end of the day, I agree with you guys, and that's what I write about and talk about. That what drives all of these people is money and power and control, and that's why, what we're seeing play out, as we're seeing, is like the theatrics of it. What we're not seeing play out is what behind the scenes, the actual deals. And this is what I always talk about. Don't listen to what they say. Watch what they're being done,
Mhm.
what's actually happened, what's taking place. Because at the end of the day, what you guys are talking about, market manipulation, where you're talking about, shorting, making money off other people. I mean, just think about what the Trumps are doing right now. In open daylight, they've just amassed over $5 billion through this whole cryptocurrency scam. I mean, you're talking about hurting people. Just think about how many millions and billions of dollars were lost by people that don't even realize it yet by buying their meme coins or whatever these things are to try to support that one day they're going to realize it because they're still part of this cult, environment that, is driving them to do these crazy things. So I think it's extremely important. That's why, I tell everybody, that's why I think the work that Zev does by exposing all of the money trail. And I say it always that I think the two things coincide. And because when you just talk about money, it's easy to make it a, partisan issue because there are crooks on both sides. So yeah, there's bad people on both sides. So everybody tries to cover, just like, think about it. Why do we need our congressman or congresswoman to be able to trade stock while they're literally trading on insider information? I mean, just
Literally.
think about it. I mean, they know what's happening and we're allowing him to do. So a lot has to be changed on both sides. And same thing when it comes to this Epstein files. We need to make sure that we keep the attention on, and that's why thank you guys. I appreciate all the work you guys do, and as a community, we do together to be able to keep the attention on. And no matter what Donald Trump does, we're going to keep the attention on. We're going to make sure that we don't what we let the voices for the survivors, for the victims be heard. And at the end of the day, what's going to really where they all mess up, it's because of something to do with a financial transaction, which
Mhm.
they get away. And that's why the thing you guys are doing, which is incredible, keep doing it and keep connecting the dots. And hopefully we're gonna have, the media pick up on it. Hopefully we have some congressmen talk about it, senators, and really ask the right questions, because it's all about asking the right questions. Because what we see right now, it's like watching North Korea or the old Soviet Union, not even Russia, the old Soviet Union, where all the reporters in the room are prepared. They have all the questions prepared. They're standing there and they know, and it's like you're watching a theatrical play out. And if, God forbid, somebody asks the wrong question, you see how it's quiet. All of a sudden, get rid of him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Lev, you're such a national treasure. I really believe that. I think it's so important that we have your experience
oh,
from the
thanks, brother.
inside, and you're able to bring that to the other side now, and and in such a professional way. But you still know how to play dirty. You still know how to play against them because you know what their tactics are like, so you know what it's going to work against them. And I agree with you 100% that the money and the money is one way of finding this, and the cover up is the other way of finding the end of the story. This turns out to be a cover up of immense proportions, which it looks like it is happening right now in real time. They're trying to cover up this entire Epstein file scandal. Well, if that is the case, that'll take him down. But I also think there's a huge potential for this money, for finding out how much money they've absolutely stolen from the American people. In my stuff for the greatest heist, I really think they've stolen the American dream from Americans. When you add up all the trillions and trillions of dollars that they have amassed through all these market collapses, goes back to the 1980s, goes back to the S&L
Yeah,
crisis, and it starts in Iran-Contra and then moves on. And then every crash after that,
1987, Black
yeah,
Sunday. Remember? Yeah,
Black
Black Monday.
Sunday, Black
Monday.
Monday, yeah. And
Yeah.
then they carry that, and even 9/11 and COVID, there's all these other elements which you sort of start thinking about through a financial lens, and you realize they've stolen so much money that they're basically taking, that 38 billion that we have now, a trillion that we have now as a debt. Is it trillion? It's trillion, I think. Yeah.
Trillion.
Yeah. Is all because of them. Not all because of them, but it's largely because of them.
Largely.
They've crashed the markets. They've made Americans poorer. They've taken away Americans' hopes and dreams. And then on top of that, they've managed to get the bailout money for themselves. And that is, in a lot of these cases, it's the bailout money that went to them, which is such a
Well,
tragedy.
Let me pick
yeah,
up on that real quick. Can I just for a quick close
yeah, go
here?
ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
first
absolutely.
of
Go
all,
ahead.
Zev, absolutely perfect. But let's not forget also, this is the whole point, right? This also implicates Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi
Mhm.
has been involved with this from the beginning. We could talk about it another time. What
Yeah.
we just talked about briefly, and we can go into detail later. We're talking about the Supreme Court. We're talking about the President of the United States. We're talking about the President of Russia. We're talking about the global financial system, and we're talking about the financial the Federal Reserve.
Mhm.
All of it is this mortgage fraud indictment is a gateway into the conviction of all of it. It's the world's largest racketeering effort that never ended.
Wow, it's a hell of a
Yeah.
statement.
That's a hell of a statement to end it off on. And then I want to say to everybody, thank you so much for joining us, for subscribing, for following us. I want to please make sure you go subscribe to Zev. You know the incredible reporting he's been doing. You make sure Patrick, he's new to our family here, but he's old to the game. He's been reporting and doing this work, so follow him, give him so make sure to give him some love from our Substack family. And what can I tell you guys? I mean, if you just break it down and simple, stupid, the way I like to call it, just think about 2008. Simple example. What Patrick and what Zev have been telling you right now is we had basically a collapse of our housing market. If you remember, for those of you that remember. It was done because there was inflated loans, there was corruption behind the scenes, and eventually, like a balloon, it popped. But a lot of people made a lot of money, and a lot of those people knew what was going on. And then the bailouts happen. And when the bailouts happen, there's more money added to our debt.
Yeah. Every single
see
time.
what-
You do that over and
you-
over again.
you
The same
see where we're
cycle.
going?
It took
You
out
see
the
where we're
whole
going?
world. It took out the whole world. It literally, I call it financial terrorism. It took out the whole
Exactly.
world.
Exactly. And basically it's the cycle, it's like a death cycle, what Zev's telling you, when the coronavirus, every time there's a problem that's occurred, it's like Donald Trump. He makes a problem and then he tries to come fix it.
Yeah.
But if you take a look where the money, why our national debt's going, and where the money, this is where these guys are connecting the dots. So I want to thank both of you. This is some incredible reporting, some breaking news. Everybody out there, make sure you spread the message. Make sure you send it far and wide. And remember, over here, we're going to speak truth to power. They'll never keep us quiet. They'll never silence us. Thank you, guys. Have a great night. Thank you, guys. Have
Thanks,
a great
Dev.
weekend. And
Thanks, Patrick.
next week, maybe we'll do a
Thank you, Jeff.
follow-up and maybe do a part two some more time where we could get a little bit deeper into this, guys, if you
That'd be
want
awesome. That'll be awesome.
to. Awesome.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care, guys.
Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
weekend.
Thanks for watching.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.